Hello there, it's Tim Levon again with the Stoic quiz answers. So you've probably clicked on this because you've already done the quiz and you want to know what the answers are. If you want to do the quiz, then it's still open and that's where you can find it. And it'll take you about 3 minutes to do it, maybe less. So these were the questions. So let's have a look at the answers, which you may already know. So what we've got is a nice little report here, which tells us not only the questions, but also how many people answered each possible answer. And as you can see, there are about 200 answers, or 200 people entered rather. So who is credited as the creator of Stoicism? Zeno, of course. 82% of you got that? Well done. Who was not a Stoic? Well, this caught nearly 20% of you out. Musonius Rufus was a Stoic, and he's probably the fourth best known Roman Stoic after the big three. But it's Epicurus who was not a Stoic, and in fact he had a rival school called the Epicureans. So, who said what upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about the things? Well, this is a very famous line from Epictetus's Enchiridion or Handbook. And if anyone's been on a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy course, this is probably the only thing they'll be told about Stoicism, which is a shame because the inventors of CBT acknowledged their debt to Stoicism, and it was more than this one statement. Anyway, Marcus Aurelius said similar things, but it was Epictetus who said that. Number 4, the serenity prayer, a harder one. It is mentioned in the course as to who invented it or created it, and it was Reinhold Niebuhr, who nearly 50% of you got that, so well done, all those who did. The other answers are obviously all wrong. A bit disappointed that some of you thought Epictetus lived in the 20th century. Russell Brand was in many ways a more plausible answer, a celebrity who's written a book, which is quite Stoic in some ways, but not always. Viktor Frankl, yeah, not an implausible answer. 20th century logotherapist, whose ideas are pretty Stoic. And James Stockdale, the fighter pilot who was shot down and took to Epictetus and Stoicism and wrote about it. Kind of Stoic version of Viktor Frankl in a way. So the answer is Reinhold Niebuhr, and that was probably the hardest question. Number 5, I'm glad that 92% of you knew that creativity was not one of the cardinal virtues. Well done. And then the questions got a little bit harder, I thought, but in a way a bit more important because they're about, not so much about factual knowledge, but it's about understanding of Stoicism. So this is really important as the preferred indifference or externals, things like health, wealth, status, what do the Stoics think about them? So 80% of you got it right, that although the externals are of some value, the virtues always take priority. So the idea is that something like health is of value, but if it's a choice between health and courage, you choose courage, for example. So it's not true, although nearly 20% of you thought that it was true. It's not true that the externals are of no value at all. That was the view held by the Cynics. And the other two statements, that didn't catch anyone out at all. Well done. And the last question, which I thought was the hardest, but actually a whopping 87% of you got right. So this was about that exercise that we saw in a video a few days ago, and it's Donald Robertson's exercise, which is list all the things you find desirable, like pleasure, the things that you think are healthy, like exercise, the things you think are admirable, like helping others. Just make a list, and then the question, our question here is, what do you make of your answers? So the correct answer is to reflect on the 3 lists and work towards what is healthy and admirable. So for instance, you might say, I like eating chocolate, but then you realize that isn't really healthy and it's not very admirable either. So although you might still want it, you kind of take a step back and decide not to act on that want. So it's not true that 40% of you thought, 7% thought you should just focus on what is healthy. Actually, the admirable is more important than the healthy. They're both important. It's not true that you should focus on what you find desirable. In fact, you should kind of focus a bit less on that. And I'm glad that only 2.5% of you thought that you should be really tough on yourself if the three lists don't match, because they won't normally match. It's not about desiring all the right things, certainly not at this stage in your Stoic progress. Stoic sage might desire all the right things. It's more about noticing that actually I can take a step back and choose what I do. So, well done, everyone. And actually, I was very impressed. How many people do you think got all the answers right? Well, there are some tough questions there. The answer was over a quarter of you got them all right. So that's fantastic. Well done. There'll be more videos on the Facebook group of SMRT and also on my YouTube channel, which is Stoic Life Coaching. So watch out for them over the coming days. Have a great day and see you later.